This is evidence of the worst behavior a victim of mental abuse by a narcissist can experience. It is possible to gain valuable insight into how to deal with your own situation by listening to the experiences of other people who have endured mental abuse at the hands of a narcissist. Abuse of this nature could be detrimental to your chances of finding love and experiencing emotional contentment. There are a variety of factors that can cause a person's conduct to change, and the emotional highs and lows that people experience are a mirror of their behavior. But just like any other aspect of one's life, one's behavior may be changed in the same manner that any other aspect of one's life can be improved. When it comes to the negative effects of psychological stress, the most visible and detrimental outcome is changes in behavior. I talk about some of the symptoms that people who have been abused by narcissists might have in this video. First on the list are anxiety and depression. Are you familiar with someone who appears to be both anxious and depressed all the time? Have you spent a significant amount of time making sure that they are doing well by checking in on them? It is probable that the individual is being subjected to mental abuse at the hands of a narcissist. Someone who is subjected to unrelenting criticism might get exhausted, and the time it takes for them to recover from this kind of abuse is not as quick as it is for them to heal from a physical injury. Deep and long-lasting wounds are created when abuse occurs on the mental realm. The perpetrator of verbal abuse, which can be subtle but devastating, is typically someone with whom the victim frequently interacts, or with whom the victim is unable to escape their presence. If you anticipate being mistreated in the future, you cannot expect to feel positive and joyful in the present now. In point of fact, it has the potential to make you feel so hopeless and helpless that the idea of ending your life by suicide may appear to be an appealing alternative. In the event that this takes place, it is imperative to seek health care. Problems with obedience are the second issue. When an individual's actions are in accordance with what other people desire or expect, compliance means that they do not go beyond what may be considered strictly required. A state of mind known as obedience is one in which a person always chooses to comply with an order, even if doing so would be in direct opposition to the beliefs or ideals that they were raised with. To make a compromise is to consent to doing something that you would like to avoid doing. It is common for people who have been the victims of mental abuse to react by being extremely obstinate in attempt to prevent any additional harm from occurring. Additionally, they could place a significant amount of importance on their connections with the abuser and or other people. The third factor is an extreme lack of confidence in oneself and an unwillingness to trust one's own judgment. The detrimental effects that mental abuse can have on a person's self-esteem can be attested to by those who have personally experienced being a victim of such abuse. Consequently, the sufferer could experience feelings of humiliation and helplessness. There is a high probability that many people who have experienced trauma would choose not to talk about it because they are afraid of being mocked or shunned by others. Regrettably, victims frequently give the impression of being helpless and defenseless, despite the fact that they make every attempt to appear different. In order to wage psychological warfare against their victims, abusers constantly remind their victims of the deficiencies they believe they have. In addition to causing considerable psychological damage, hearing insulting comments on a frequent basis can also affect the victim's capacity to trust themselves. Fourth, they are unable to control their behavior and are emotionally unstable despite their best efforts. Processing information and making decisions are both functions that are performed by the brain, which serves as the control center of the body. Abuse of the mind can weaken a person's capacity to exercise control over their own ideas and emotions, which can result in emotional instability and impulsive behavior. In the absence of appropriate control, These behaviors have the potential to inflict severe repercussions and lead to decisions that are undesirable. Irrationality, sometimes known as the tendency to act or react without sufficient reason, is currently ranked 5th. The inability to reason can cause victims of psychopaths to exhibit excessive emotional responses, such as hysteria or oversensitivity. This is because psychopaths are unable to reason. It's possible that these people will be taught views that are harmful or wrong, and they will be considered as expendable. It is possible that victims will think and act in ways that are not grounded in reality as a consequence of this. Experiencing feelings of intimidation is a natural response to being wrongfully accused or judged harshly. Gloom and despondency come in at number 6. Do you know someone who lives their life with a perpetually pessimistic outlook and appears to be concerned just with surviving? There is a possibility that they are on the verge of giving up because of the concerns that they have about themselves and the world. Victims of mental abuse may have a loss of confidence in themselves and their capacity to deal with ongoing issues in the future. The belief that things will turn out poorly, often known as pessimism, can become intentional and shape a person's perspective of the past, the present, and the future with its influence. Abuse of the mind can result in feelings of failure and melancholy, making it difficult to believe that one is deserving of happiness and that one is worthy of success. As a consequence of this, victims could take further efforts to safeguard themselves against potential danger. 7th on the list, ineffectiveness. In spite of having access to all of the required resources, victims of mental abuse may experience a loss of interest in things that they once enjoyed and may make very little progress. As a result of their interactions with narcissists, they could suffer feelings of hopelessness and negativity, and they might predict the worst possible outcomes. Having a pessimistic outlook on life can be detrimental to one's efforts to achieve meaningful accomplishments, particularly if the individual is under the impression that their efforts are not appreciated. The 8th violation is a lack of responsibility and safety. In the field of psychology, the term recklessness refers to a disdain for one's own safety, as well as the safety of others. As a result of the strain they are under, victims of mental abuse may make hasty decisions, which can bring about a destructive cycle of codependence with their abuser. People who abuse others frequently create stressful circumstances, which can have an impact on a person's ability to make decisions. However, taking matters into one's own hands can result in the situation becoming even more dire, hence creating a catch-22 predicament. Because of the mental and emotional anguish they have been through, victims may become irresponsible or incapable of making sound choices as a result of their experiences. The 9th item is resentment. It is possible for a person to experience distress when they are subjected to maliciously directed unpleasant thoughts or remarks. It is possible for victims of abuse to harbor resentment toward their abuser as a result of the harsh actions that they have both experienced and witnessed. When victims reflect on the events that transpired in their lives, they may find themselves filled with bitterness and a stronger desire for vengeance. They could try to justify their experience, exact revenge, and demand justice for what they have been through. In particular, this may be the case for narcissistic abusers who give the impression of being compassionate. It is possible that victims will feel the desire to bring the abuser to their knees and remove them from their position of power. Nevertheless, victims may also mistakenly vent their anger on individuals around them rather than facing the narcissist, who they are aware will not change their conduct. This is because victims don't want to approach the narcissist. Unsettled is the 10th entry. Individuals who have been subjected to narcissistic mental abuse frequently display traits that are uncomfortable and can be challenging to relate with. It is possible that they behave appropriately because they are terrified of the narcissist, which might result in indicators of stress and restlessness in the individual. It is possible, for instance, that they have difficulty remaining sitting, or that they are too distracted to concentrate on tasks for an extended period of time. There is a possibility that these behaviors are the result of anxiety or tension brought on by something that is not of genuine danger. Biting one's nails, tapping one's feet, and tapping one's fingers on a tabletop are all examples of coping methods that can be helpful for persons who suffer from anxiety. In the event that you or someone you know has been the victim of narcissistic mental abuse, it is essential to acknowledge that the majority of victims change their conduct as a consequence of the abuse. The process of healing can be aided by any changes in behavior that an individual makes. Nevertheless, if you want to achieve outstanding outcomes, it is a good idea to seek the advice of an expert. Could you kindly give this video a like and subscribe if you found it to be helpful? I strongly suggest that you view some of my other films that are on dealing with narcissists.